to be the man, you gotta beat the man right here.
Is the future of wrestling. You can call this the new world order of wrestling, brother.
Nobody is on my level. Everything I touch turns to gold.
Believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
Tuesday night watching NXT and watching Twitter and just seeing something shocking, surreal, and downright tragic. Jamin Pugh, Jay Briscoe, former multi-time Ring of Honor World Champion, 13-time Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, one half of the Briscoe brothers from Sandy Fork, Delaware. He died in a car accident in Laurel, Maryland. It's going to be Laurel, Delaware. I did the same thing David Meltzer said when he was trying to report this. Fatal car crash. The initial story from Figure 4 Online and Wrestling Observer, they didn't know how many vehicles were involved, but the driver of the other car also died. And Briscoe was set to turn 39 years old. His brother Mark, his birthday's today. You know, anyone that lost a very close loved one, you know how this hurts. You can feel that part. But I don't even know I could even fathom how much grief there must be in that household right now. 2 young daughters, very close-knit family. I mean, just an immense amount of respect for his craft in the world of professional wrestling. There just was. Now, last night, I wrote on Twitter, and this was the first thing I thought about when I saw the story. I said to myself, it was just what I thought about right off the bat. Jay Briscoe would have excelled in any era of professional wrestling. Any era. And I mean that. I could see that guy going up against the likes of, you know, the Funk brothers, the Briscoe brothers, the original Briscoe brothers, right? Gerald and, Jerry and, yeah, I could definitely see that too. I could see him going against Ric Flair. I mean, just, you know, there was just a lot of, the ECW roster, absolutely. A CZW, you want to put him against, you know, there was just a lot of different eras he could have been part of. I could see him in world class. Like, you know, just saying, because he was tough. He was cut from the cloth. Like, you look at him, he's larger than life. Now, we know that it was a few years ago that WWE had him on their radar, right? And they were going to get signed. They were going to go to NXT after a good run. At the same time, everybody else was moving over. 2014, 2015, or 2016, around that same time, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn make their way through. Seth Rollins already made his way through. And a lot of other people from that roster were making their way over because the pillaging of Ring of Honor was going on at that time to, you know, add some veteran, really some independent talent as part of the NXT roster, which was doing so well, to also kind of uplift the development part of the roster that was there. They decided, let's go search for free agents. Let's go for what was out there. And the Briscoe brothers were absolutely in that spot. And due to unfortunate, you know, use of words that, of course, you know, people are very sensitive. There's cancel culture. Fortunately, they were a part of that because of a gay slur, right? I know there was from Jay that did not give them the chance to go ahead and go up to that main, up to WWE. So they never went to the big dance, which is fine. Okay, you don't. Your career in professional wrestling does not need to be defined about did you go to WWE. It doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. As I've said many times before, if Sting never went to WWE in the first place, I would have been fine with it. I don't think anybody would have had any difference to it. But you know what? Hey, he had the itch. Go for it. And everybody else has done the same thing, right? So when you look at what happened here, 38 years old is too young. And, you know, even though with the Briscoe brothers, and for as much time as we saw them in the ring, 20 years, okay? With Jay Briscoe, 20 years. Going back to the Ring of Honor. And say to myself, man, those guys, their life was into this business. To have a tag team, and arguably one of the best tag teams in the past 25 years. I'm going to say it like this, and you want to go ahead and shit on me all you want, go right ahead. The Briscoe brothers, in my opinion, they're at the same level as the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, Hardy Boys, Young Bucks, Motor City Machine Guns. I put them up there. I do. And when you think about brothers, that and the way they just work with the chemistry they had, like I think with the Steiner brothers. The Steiner brothers are very much like on the kind of cut the cloth of what, Jay Briscoe and Mark Briscoe were. Because it kind of was that feel. Jay was the Scott Steiner and Mark was the Rick Steiner. It was, Dogface Gremlin, right? It kind of felt like that. And the other thing too is that with Jay Briscoe, you see him excelling also as a single star. And he was crowned twice Ring of Honor World Champion and was a hell of a world champion. With a fantastic finisher. Fantastic finisher. That J Driller always looked awesome. And you see the more and more he changed his look and the more just intimidating he looked. Like both of them look badass. They look like they could kick your ass. They really do. A bunch of chicken farmers from Delaware. But that gimmick, I mean, if there's anything more synonymous with Ring of Honor in its entire inception, in the entire run of the 20 plus years that organization was alive, before Tony Khan bought it, that was them. And they were part of all of it. Plus, they had their chance to get looked at and be seen by other organizations. Conan actually was talking about the fact he wanted to get them in AAA. But those guys had too many dates. They were sought after. On the indie circuit, those guys were not losing paychecks. They were getting a lot of work out there. They worked in Ring of Honor in the new Tony Khan era and worked FDR in a trilogy of matches that were fantastic. As again, the Briscoes were not passé. They were still on top of their game. They were in their prime still. Because Briscoes and FTR, that dog collar match is still fantastic. And then just the first couple of matches they had in Ring of Honor, in the pay-per-views, fantastic. Like, I actually give credit for Tony Khan for what he did, to bring them on board. And this is after the whole thing with, Billy Corgan and NWA doing the Crockett Cup and all that stuff going on. Like, they ruffled feathers with certain, people, but for the most part, those guys worked. They worked hard. And it doesn't matter what kind of match you put. You want a hardcore match? You want hardcore war? You want, like, everything going on? You got it, man. Those guys, blood, they put their bodies on the line. They were tough. Now, Mark is still with us, but half of him is gone. I don't even know. I mean, Jay, I guess, I don't know if he was I guess he was the older brother, right? Slightly. But, and listen, I don't pretend to know everything about everything. Like the Briscoe brothers only got to start seeing him in 2013 when Ring of Honor was available in my market. When St. Clair Broadcasting bought it and it was on the local TV over here, I got to watch Ring of Honor. And, I got the chance to go to one of the Ring of Honor shows because I wanted to go see it. I went to one of the War Memorial shows in Fort Lauderdale and I got to see them there. But for the most part, I was always impressed by them. Like, my thing was always thought, like, keep those guys here the tag titles. Like, seriously, we don't need them to go, like, they can always keep competing. Keep them in the mix because Briscoe brothers need to be on the card every show and let them do something. Give them something good to work with. And they did. If I remember they worked with War Machine. I want to say they worked with Shane Taylor and Keith Lee. I want to say that there was a lot of teams they worked with. They worked with Young Bucks. Like, there was just a lot that they did. Briscoes were fantastic, man. And Jay Briscoe's great. Was a hell of a champion. Anyway, let's get into the story. Let's go and get into what we know about Jay Briscoe. Besides the fact that what they put in here in the story, Wrestling Observer did get a chance to kind of really go and do a quick look back at the career of what Jay and his brother Mark did do. A fixture in ROH for 20 years, Jay Briscoe and his brother Mark started making a name for themselves in the early 2000s in the Northeast US and DC, working for CZW, NWA Wildside, NWA, and other promotions. And by the way, even though those were outside of the gamut of WCW, ECW, and WWE, or WWF at the time, those promotions were not pushovers. Those were good places to work at. You were not that far from the top. Combat Zone, we always heard about. It's Wild Side, always heard about. On the outside looking in. But they were young. They were about 18 years old, just getting started. But they're best known as tag team stars synonymous with the promotion. The first two won the Ring of Honor tag team titles, their first title reign, 2003. And just started their 13th reign at December's final battle, defeating FTR in a double dog collar match. They've also held the Ring of Honor's 6-man tag team titles with Bully Ray in 2017. Jay Briscoe was a 2-time Ring of Honor world champion, solo champion of his own, 2013, and then he had a long run 2014 through 2015. He and Mark wrestled around the world, held the IWGP Tag Team titles, the GCW Tag Team titles 3 times. They were Impact World Tag Team champions, and never open weight titles holders as well. Yeah, because I forgot how much they were in Impact Wrestling, but they weren't that long in there, but they were long enough to be given the belts. That's the respect that group got. And, you know, the mouthpiece, the main mouthpiece of that duo was Jay Briscoe. And he cut a good promo. He got that crowd wild up. And that guy was just tough across the board. All I know is there's a lot of people that talked about this. Now, there was a statement that was brought up today by Delaware State Police to talk about this issue. And, you know, wrestling community obviously keeping an eye on what was going on here. So the report is that it was a fatal accident occurring in Laurel, Delaware, late Tuesday afternoon. And this is what they said. It was a 2019 Chevy Silverado 1500 that hit head to head with a 2016 Chevrolet Silverado 2500. These are 2 big pickup trucks. And so, looks like, I guess, they're both Chevy Silverados. The newer model was the Briscoes. That's what Jay was driving. He was the driver. And then he said that the other driver in the other pickup truck failed to remain in the lane, crossed center line, and went right into the path of the Silverado, created a head-on collision with both pickup trucks. 27-year-old Lillian Turnahan of Frankfort, Delaware, was wearing her seatbelt. Jay Briscoe, or Jamin Pugh, was not wearing a seatbelt. Both drivers pronounced dead. And 2 passengers in Pugh's pickup truck, 12-year-old daughter, 9-year-old daughter, both properly restrained. Now, I don't know if it made a difference if he had the seatbelt on or not, but I would, you know, if anybody ever thinks about that, please put it on. I'm glad his kids did. I'm glad. I'm sure that he probably made sure to say, hey, you know, that kind of safety. This is his kids. Loved them. You could see it. There's of course, the video that's going on through Twitter that's been circulating about him doing, like helping one of his daughters out with ballet lessons. He's doing the whole routine, or is it cheerleading or something like that? I forget what it is, but it's a full routine. He's doing it. And it's like, that's commitment. That's love for his daughter. I can imagine. And nothing said about alcohol involvement. No other vehicles involved. That's what we know. That's what we know right now at the moment with everything going on with the accident. But as for what this means, as we said, we're trying to learn more details about it as we can go along. Anything else we can find out. The Shore News Beacon said there were multiple cars reporting as many as 4 patients trapped. I'll admit, it's not one of those things where, I guess because I still feel something, because I mean, I lost a loved one, you know, this summer. And so, like, there's anything that can honestly kind of like just make you feel a little more emotional. Not necessarily go to tears, but like the shock first, and then just seeing the outpouring of love and appreciation for everything that was going on. And as of last check, when I was looking at WrestlingNews.co, Briscoe's wife asking for prayers for the kids. The daughter Gracie's getting surgery on her back, and that Jay would want the whole world paying for his little girl. And his other daughter, Jaylee, had some pretty serious injuries, but she's stable and resting. And their other child, Gannon, is waiting at home. So they had 3 kids. Oh, man. And there's a picture I can see of where Jay's driving with his wife, with the kids in the back. And I'm like, oh, man. And, of course, as wrestling fans, do we ever kind of always think about the fact of the families that are involved when something like this happens tragically? Obviously, we know about him in the sport and his excelling in the sport of professional wrestling. But then nothing's being said. We don't talk enough about what he did for the business. I want to focus on that part because there's a great importance that Jay Briscoe made to this business. One thing AEW, Tony Khan, I give credit, trying to make something of the situation to pay tribute as much as he can. And they put a graphic at the start of the night, a couple seconds to pay tribute. They also talked to him at the end of the show, brought up, made comments about him. I think it was throughout anyway. And Tony Khan mentioned they were going to film a special ROH tribute to Jay Briscoe. It'll be available soon to everyone on Honor Club. And it'll also be on Ring of Honor's YouTube page. So prior to the start of AEW Dynamite tonight, a graphic aired honoring Briscoe, and the wrestlers came to the show wearing armbands with the words Briscoe and Jay. Can appreciate what's being done now. What we have to make mention of is this. There are a lot of wrestlers right now that are prominent right now from the original Ring of Honor roster from the 2010s that made their way up, that I'm sure they're all grateful, and they're paying homage and respects to the man that, because of what he did and what he did for everyone when it comes to really, making a huge contribution to the industry. It's one of those things, and it's just, oh man, it's hard to just see all this go on and see everybody talking about it and just looking. There's a lot of great tweets out there of people just flooding love and support to him and his family. And like I said, a lot of the wrestlers we look up to today, some of our favorites right now, towards the main event scene in AEW or WWE, the responsibility of where they are now, Jay Briscoe has a hand in that. Because a lot of these wrestlers had to go through and work with Jay, or work with Jay and Mark, and really do some numbers. Adam Cole, he says, I don't know what my life would be without Jay Briscoe in it. I don't want to know. You believed in me. You helped me. You treat me like family. There will be never another like you. Never be another like you. And I'm so grateful to have known a man like you. I love you, Jay. Triple H says he's an incredible performer who created a deep connection with wrestling fans across the globe. Seth Rollins. Being in the ring with Jay Briscoe got me my first Ring of Honor contract. Damn. That's going back. Tyler Black. So the Briscoes helped get Tyler Black in the door at Ring of Honor, who would become a world champion there and eventually would make his way into NXT, WWE, and he's been a decade plus excelling in that brand. And like I say, every time, let's see if we can ever see Seth Rollins make his way up to that main event picture once again and be holding one of those world titles, because he should. He's that good. Now, Seth goes on and says that he and Mark, being so selfless, helped Jimmy and I find our footing as AOTF. So Jimmy Jacobs, right? Without him, I don't know if Tyler Black could have ever been Seth Rollins. Wow. Yeah, that's, and you just, it's also the fact of when you look at, the group of people that we had out there, of stars, right? Age of the Fall. That was the name of the group. Okay. I'll think about it like this. When you think about who Jay Briscoe took on and who he's worked with in those 20 years, the number of stars he worked with, even though he wasn't on that major league WWE brand, it doesn't matter. Plus, a lot of the WWE fans were paying respects tonight and last night. Big E writes, we certainly studied and borrowed from the Briscoe brothers. They have left an indelible mark on tag team wrestling. I was blown away by the trilogy with FTR. Deepest condolences. And Sami Zayn writes, I don't have the words right now to properly convey my sorrow. I love Jay and Mark Briscoe. I always have. I wouldn't be here without them. I'm very lucky to have shared the ring and shared so many laughs with Jay, and I'm sad to know neither will ever happen again. By the way, Tony Khan did the tribute show tonight after taping Rampage tonight, and the plan was they also flew in some people to last minute to make the show happen. Wow. NWA gave a tribute. All Elite Wrestling gave a tribute. Game Changer Wrestling, with a broken heart, we mourn the loss of a fighter, brother, father, and a champion. Tommaso Ciampa writes, this one hurt so bad. Jay Briscoe defined passion for his family, his friends, his wrestling, and everything in between. I will love you. I will miss you. All I'm going to admit, it's hard to talk about. All I feel like doing is just like, I hope some of you fans have gone out there and watched some of his matches. Watch him win the world titles and just see how damn good that guy was. I mean, even today, man, I think if Triple H had the chance and, things were working out as they were, I think things might have simmered down enough where the Briscoes were already, that whole trilogy with FTR, let me tell you, that might have been enough to say, hey, let's get them back over here and let's just launch them on the main roster. I would have been surprised. It wouldn't have surprised me. I think WWE always had them on their radar. They had to have. There's no way they couldn't. There's no possible way that they could have not looked at him and said, you know what, maybe there's something there. Maybe there is. And so we find out. I'll take a few more tributes that came up here. Matt Hardy writes, heard this tragic news while flying. Devastated that Jay Briscoe tragically died. I was honored to work with him many times. I love Jay. Jay was so real. Jay loved his wife and kids more than anything, and we shared that bond. I'm heartbroken for his family. During the NXT show last night, Vic Joseph made sure to make a quick mention of it as it happened, which was very nice and respectful of the company they're going to make mention of. Kyle O'Reilly, he says, Jay Briscoe was the real deal. I was always amazed how someone can be so intimidating one moment, then so warm and affable the next. He gave so much of the business into his family, and I'm forever grateful for having known him. Strength and love to Mark and his family. Love you, bro. No one has a bad thing to say. Nothing close. Usos. R.I.P. to the homie Jay Briscoe. Condolences to your family. Rest in paradise, Uso. Mickey James. I'm shocked and devastated to learn about the passing. Can't believe it. I've known him and Mark since the beginning of ROH. My heart goes out to his entire family. Son, brother, father, and friend to so many. It just doesn't feel right, Tommy Dreamer, I've known Jay Briscoe since he was a fan, watched him since becoming an amazing wrestler, best tag team and realest promo guy. I was going to text him today about the cost of eggs, and I didn't. I wish I did. Whenever I saw him, I'd say, love me some Briscoes. Pray for his family. New Japan, the thing is, the outpouring support shows you he's not just an indie wrestler. This guy was a top of the line solo and tag team wrestler, main event caliber, any roster. I stand behind that. Any roster. This guy's a main eventer. All you got to do is book him right. And one of the real, I'll tell you what, and somebody I was hoping to hear from, Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, who put something up on Twitter, his tribute. He put something really good. First of all, he put Jamin and the Heart on there, and let me tell you, one of the title wins that Jay Briscoe had was he beat Kevin Owens for the world title. Kevin Steen. Hell of a match, by the way. Good stuff. And here's what Kevin Owens writes. I spent hours reading what people had to say about Jamin last night. I watched some of our matches together and went back and read our last text to each other. I'm so heartbroken for his family. Every single one of them that I met over the years, and I met a lot of them, because they all stuck together like glue. All special human beings that would give you the shirt off their back in a heartbeat if you needed it. That's who Jamin was. There are a few people in this industry that I consider pillars of my own career. People I truly feel I would not be where I am today had I not encountered them. Jay and Mark are two of those peers. 2007, they made the opportunity to make or break two Canadian guys that were putting themselves on the map in the U.S. indie scene. That's him and Sami Zayn. I remember walking up to Jay that afternoon before a match and asking what he wanted to do. Never met him before. First interaction we ever had. He heard my question, looked at me, and with a huge smile across his face said, well, shit, man. Let's go out there and fucking kill it. So we did. We did that night, and we did many times after that. Each match I had with him stands out in my memory among the thousands of matches I've had in my career, because working with the Briscoes was special every single time. Damn, man. Having the honor of being in the room with Jay and his entire family as they celebrated after he beat me for the Ring of Honor title is the favorite moment of my independent career, bar none. It was special for all of them, for the crowd there that night, for everyone in the locker room, and for me because Jay was special. I didn't get to see Jamin much after I went to WWE in 2014. In fact, I only think we saw each other once, but it was like no time had passed at all. He came to see a WWE show, and of course his whole family was with him. He was so excited and proud to tell me about everything his kids and wife were up to and how great they were doing. He loved his family with everything he had. It was amazing to see them all. We didn't keep in touch very often, but every time we did, it absolutely made my day. Getting a text message from him was always like a giant ray of sunshine. I'm so thankful that I got to have him in my life. So thankful for the laughs and memories. Just so thankful to have known him. I'm a better person for having had the chance to. My heart goes out to Ashley and the kids, to Mark and his parents, and to everyone else that knew him and loved him. And that's a lot of fucking people, because Jay was special. Oh, man. I hate to see this, man. This is a tough one for the end. This is a tough one for wrestling fans, tough one for wrestling in general. Oh, man. I don't know. For all of us, it's heartbreaking overall. There's not much more I can say except for the fact that, look, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, the Hardys, right? Bully Ray working with them, Tommy Dreamer working with them. I mean, just across the board, if it's Young Bucks, if it's Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, anybody on that roster, Jay Lethal, there were just so many good names that went through the Briscoe brothers and through Jay Briscoe himself. And it was an A game right there. He was intense. He was tough. I mean, really, you could take some of the things about him and just look at his intensity. Now, I don't want to go ahead and compare him to anybody else, but there's a lot of comparisons I can make. But in this modern era of professional wrestling, let me tell you something, man. You don't get, talk about an organic made character, right? Reach for the sky, man up, beloved tag team. And for a long damn time. Face or heel doesn't matter, because they came in with the same intensity, the same deal. That was just, they were kick-ass, man. And that's the bottom line. That's just what they are. Part of me is saying to myself, man, we're never going to see the Briscoe brothers wrestle again. Shit. I don't even know what Mark does next. I mean, I imagine, not just do you have a tribute show tonight for the Briscoes. I imagine there's going to be some Briscoe, there'll be a night that'll be a bigger tribute to him coming up, I imagine. And I could guess that Mark Briscoe might have to get a team with somebody against somebody for some dream match. I don't know. I mean, Mark, what do you do next? I mean, he's done his own singles work, but man, what do you do now when you don't have your brother at your side? This is where wrestling can be real. And wrestling, our passion for this business, for what we love this sport for, we can grieve too, just as much as the families out there, because we've been attached to these guys for so long. Like I said, for me, it's been 10 years watching them on TV. Last night I was really choking up a bit. Just seeing everybody just putting out the support. Hard to watch NXT last night because just got sidetracked around that second hour. Man, but the one thing is we got a whole library of matches that guy's gone through. He wrestled a lot. So if you want to catch him wrestling, we have more than 20 years of his career. So we definitely have that. We definitely have that. And the truth is, I mean, of course there's more they could have done with their career. I don't know what else they could have accomplished. Won the Ring of Honor World titles 13 times. I mean, I guess you got to do something where in the tribute, you have to go and crown new tag team champions. I don't know how you're going to do that. But I guess the next Ring of Honor show, the one that's coming up, Supercard of Honor, but they're going back to LA. I imagine you do something there where that's going to suck, man. Briscoe brothers have to vacate the titles. And, you got to crown new champions. But I'll tell you, the new tag team champions out of that, it's like an invitational tournament. Like that's, a full tribute. You want to talk about some hard working in that night? They'll probably have to try to, crown new champs. And I'll tell you, you're going to have some people working. And the work rate will definitely say something about the testament as to how important Jay Briscoe was at his business. One of the best wrestlers we had since I've been on this, since I've been behind this microphone doing the show. One of the best wrestlers we had. He is. And, it doesn't make a difference to me if he didn't ever worked. He worked at every other organization, basically. Technically AEW because he was Ring of Honor. But he worked everybody knew him. Everybody worked for him. He worked in New Japan. Too bad he didn't get to work in Mexico. That would have been fun. Conan, I'm sure, would have had a good time with him. They would have worked great down there. Shit. Would have worked great. But that's where we're at right now. This is all sad. I just don't like seeing all this, but what are you going to do, right? It's a shame. Okay. There's another story I want to cover tonight outside of what happened with Jay Briscoe. And that's Nick Khan. He was on the Bill Simmons podcast. And there's a lot he said that we should go ahead and cover. So let's get into Nick Khan speaking on the Bill Simmons podcast. And I haven't had a chance to go and look through everything that happened, but there was a lot that was discussed and asked about of Nick Khan, who is now the sole CEO of WWE as we speak. So he spoke about a lot of things. And first of all, they talked for about an hour. And they talked about the events of the last week when it comes to everything with Vince McMahon returning back into the helm as the board of directors for the purpose of, which I will still continue to say, is for the broadcasting rights or a possible impending sale of WWE. Because I think he, having the shareholder power, the voting power, he's able to go ahead and nix any deal that doesn't have his approval. So he's going to be involved. And when Bill Simmons asked Nick Khan about the fact of if McMahon would always eventually return, despite announcing retirement in July, he said this, Nick Khan, quote, "When you're on the inside, you see things that may be coming. My thought was there was always one boss in the company, and that ain't me. I think it was always my point of view. Stephanie's point of view, he would come back. The way he played it to me was smart in that he went away for 5-6 months, which people, meaning the audience, seems to like when somebody does that and he came back at the control back of his company after as a company shareholder. So it is the public's company is a publicly traded company, but with that, the controlling share gave him a lot of authority and he used it, and I applaud him for doing so." Yeah. So Vince McMahon and Nick Khan, obviously Nick Khan is in the right mindset where it comes to understanding Vince McMahon and the madness of the old man of what he does. And then he was asked about if McMahon would return, would there be a risk of hurting the company's image? And he says, you know, you look at Ray Rice in the NFL, in which people were asking NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to step down. So Khan makes a good point. He says it out flat, man. Well, no advertisers fled. Ratings aren't down. The product seems to continue to build. Why would he resign? Why would he do that? I think it's just a 3-mile radius of LA thing. Hey, step down, and you know, you have to be sort of punished for it. It didn't used to be that way, so I think for somebody like Vince and somebody like Bill, you're two different people, but you're both founder CEOs, and I think founder CEOs are different from regular CEOs. WWE is Vince. Vince is WWE, and we're going to do the best we can to keep building the company. Okay. He also noted that during Vince's absence, he and Stephanie were given total freedom from McMahon. At Triple H, same. Since his return, his focus has only been on the potential WWE sale and other board of directors business. Right after that, he said he visited Vince during his sitting out, thought it was more for personal and social reasons. He said, quote, "You know, when he stepped down, anyone who believed that it was permanent didn't know him. That was never going to happen, but I'm appreciative of the fact that he gave it 5-6 months, let the dust settle after a little bit, and then came back in the way, and he's come back." He also then Bill Simmons pointed out the perception about how he brought back in as board of directors members, Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, former co-presidents, back to the company. And Khan says he said bringing in two people that understand how Vince McMahon is his majority shareholder will be the one in charge of facilitating the sale was a determining factor. And as a controlling shareholder, Vince is going to run that process. So to have board members who understood that with a controlling shareholder, that's going to be the way it is. And the people who would embrace this, that was a determining factor. And there's always the misperception that always had that WWE had a board of directors puppeteered by Vince McMahon, and that has been the case. And then when asked about how Stephanie had to leave for a second absence after Vince's return, he opened the door to the possibility of her returning to the company in the future. But remember, she did get knee surgery, and she wanted to take a leave of absence before this all happened. Let's all remember that. And then asked about, will there be more, if he's worried about more revelations about McMahon, and Khan says he's not. Quote, "It feels like whatever happened, it's out there. And people know I've always found him to be a very honest broker with this stuff. So even when the process started last summer, there was nothing that he hid, there was nothing that he covered up. I think he was very honest about it, and I appreciated that. And I think a lot of the other folks did too." And then with Vince returning to television, he said not at the moment, but things could change. And then discussing the prospect of a sale, Khan said there was potential for McMahon to only sell part of the company, emphasizing the strategic alternative phrase that was used constantly during the interview. And that Tony Khan's name was brought up, and he asked when he saw Tony Khan at AEW as a threat, Nick rejected the idea and that he felt threatened by Tony. Quote, "I don't feel threatened by anyone on anything. It's not just how I do business. I don't care what anybody else is doing. I care what we're doing. And as long as we can have the best product on with the best talent and the best writers, I think we're going to be in good shape." Nick Khan is consistent because he talks about the competition is not just in wrestling. So, I mean, Bill Simmons, asking some pretty valid questions, but still comes down to the fact that it doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to continue to move along and do their business as such. That's the gist of what was said. And for everybody else to think and to further fool the cause that there's something more to what happened here. No. Why? Why are we going to talk about that? It doesn't matter. For everybody to get caught up on all this shit of what's going on, it doesn't matter. Oh, well. Now, one other thing I want to bring up is we do have the Royal Rumble coming up in a couple weeks. It's just down the corner. And here's what we got so far. So it is coming up next Sunday. Not this, but the next Sunday, January 28th, San Antonio, Texas, Alamo Dome. And at the moment, we don't have a whole lot been built up yet, but we do have matches, and we do already have some competitors already claiming to be a part of the Royal Rumble match. There'll be a pitch black match with Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight, which is not getting me very much excited for that match at all. Nothing. I feel nothing for it. Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens for the Undisputed Universal Championship. Bianca Belair will take on Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. And then we have the 2 Royal Rumble matches at the moment. In the women's side, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, and Raquel Rodriguez have all made their claim to enter the Royal Rumble. 11 members so far for the men's side. That's Omos, Cody Rhodes, Gunther, Rey Mysterio, Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, Austin Theory, Baron Corbin, Ricochet, Santos Escobar, and Kofi Kingston. That men's Royal Rumble match is going to be fire. This is going to, we're going to, again, we'll say this again. The test will be that we're going to see a lot of what's happening here with the Royal Rumble, the improvement of the mid-card, and how much more important and how much more interesting are we going to see things going on in that Royal Rumble match. That Royal Rumble match. You'll see it. It's pretty obvious. That's what we're going to come down to. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Now, this is what we're going to do. I've already done an episode of the podcast when I did a post show. A very well-received post show for Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill post show. And the fact that Mickie James was able to become Impact World Champion, she will start off Thursday night's Impact Wrestling. By the time you catch this episode, it'll probably have already come on, or will be on that night. And that's what's going to happen. So it's good. Everything's working out as such. I'm happy about it. So we'll take it from there. That's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening in. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. Find past episodes anytime at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or all major podcast distributors. Follow at King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.